In a few minutes, 7 cents for Can you tell if we're looking at head first or feet? Like that. What you're going to read about?
Rob's a critic. Generations.
Yes.
Jacob.
No.
Do you have the people that you work with? You can help, but not you. Not you. Let's get
Are we
them.
ready? Okay. For those who would please do the honor to act as a pallbearer, please come to the coach. Everybody else, just go ahead and stay there.
We're still missing my children.
Oh, your children. Oh,
Yeah.
never mind. I'm sorry, we're missing grandkids.
10
They're
minutes
gonna
out?
use- they're gonna use the grandchildren.
10 minutes. So, Victoria,
Oh, they're still 10 minutes out. Oh, okay. Oh, well, you didn't tell me that. Now you're telling me. See, now that the caterer is pushed out. Now you're.
oh, the caterer is pushed out too? Oh, okay.
As soon as somebody else took care of it. Christine, where are they? There was an accident. Don't you track him? There's a lot of traffic.
6th Avenue? I just came off of 6th and it was open.
Sons? Sevens?
No, no, no. I'll say something. But you can't, you choose to. Sometimes people will say, is it okay? It's an honor. Because you. those deals. No, I had one of those deals today. Member of the congregation, I went for 15 years. Text. She emailed me. Can you do me a favor? So I wrote it back and said, so she would just call me back and left a message. She called me back. She said, it's a scam. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're just a little late because some of the relatives are caught in traffic. So please bear with us. And if you need to, step in.
They're parking. Oh, yeah, that is not their car, but that's what they are. Thank you so much today for the three men here, who's facing each other. And then I will coach you up every step of the way. So it's like just
Thank you for your consideration. To encourage those of you who are sitting or standing in the sun, there's plenty of room over here in the shade. Take a step forward to get out of the sun.
We appreciate it.
Just know that I have done this more than you have. The sun can get very, very hot. Number one. Sure thing. Number two, I speak of There's an extra seat. It's the best I can do.
Just gonna move this.
Okay. From the 121st Psalm. Esainai el heharim, mi'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shemayim va'aretz. Al yatein lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. B'nei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka. V'yareach b'layla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitcha b'lecha me'ata b'yad olam. I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Lord will guard your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of all generations. Thou governest all things with infinite wisdom and mercy. Who guidest the destinies of all of humankind. As a parent have you loved us and showered your blessings upon us. Therefore we shall not murmur even when sorrow befalls us. But with humility and unfaltering trust we shall accept your decrees. In joy and in sorrow alike we praise your goodness and acknowledge your justice. We remember that we are but strangers upon earth. Like a shadow, our life flees away. Help us, O God, so to walk in your sight, that when the few years of our earthly pilgrimage are ended, we may be ready to meet our end with tranquil mind. To thee we look for comfort and strength. One of our beloved is taken from us, and a link is broken in the chain of love which binds us together. Though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil. You are with us. Praised, O eternal our God, in all your dispensations. Sanctified be your name, now and forevermore. Let us all say together. Amen. Victoria, I'm going to call upon you first as the daughter, because I know that you have some things you want to say about your dad. Please.
I'd like to thank you all for being here. For all the family, the extended family, friends that became family, the crazy ones who married into our family. I wanted to start off with, I'm not sure if it's negative, I always don't like to use strong words like hate, but my father hated communism with a passion. Everybody knew this. He was very outspoken. He was strong-willed. He saw things his way. Everybody knew that side of him. But because of that, my parents were the pioneers that brought us all here. In January 1977, we arrived in Denver. It seemed like a ghost town. First of all, it was a lot smaller community. Definitely very few Russians here, and we had the best of volunteers who helped set us up and get us going. But the reason why it was a ghost town was because it was January of 1977, and the Broncos were in the Super Bowl that year against the Dallas Cowboys, and everybody was at home watching the game. It was our first Super Bowl loss, and I was only 4 years old, but somehow I knew even back then that I would never like the Dallas Cowboys. Strangely enough, a thought came to me last night that as my father got older, his brain started going, and like many who suffer from dementia, he would lose his short-term memory, but had his long-term memory. And he started thinking that he was younger and he was still working and that he was still in Russia. And it just so happened that this past Thanksgiving, when he was at our house, the Dallas Cowboys were playing on Thanksgiving Day. And my father was shocked, wondering why the Dallas Cowboys were in Minsk. I don't know I don't know if that's a full circle kind of universal thing, but it just came to my mind. Since our arrival in the US, my parents brought out countless members of our family, many of which are here today. And when Alex and I got married in 1994, I think we counted something like close to 80 members of our family alone. And that number has since grown by marriage, by more people. This is the public part that everybody knows about my father. Here's some things that you probably did not know. And until I became a parent myself, these amazing kids, I didn't realize just what an impact children can really have on their parents. I always knew, you learn from your parents, they teach you, but I never really knew how much we teach our parents. American football was something foreign to my father, but in the 6th grade, I became a huge fan and started watching every game. And so did he. Dad loved the Broncos. Not like a crazy fan like some, but he used to watch every game and always ask me how they were doing. In 1987, when we beat the Browns on the drive for the AFC Championship, I was up in my room on the 3rd floor because I had to watch the games by myself. He was downstairs on the 1st level watching. And when Rich Carlos kicked that field goal in overtime, I ran down the stairs. Dad ran up a flight of stairs, and it's like something out of the movies. We collided and hugged for what seemed an eternity. I felt all my pain in 87, 88, and in 90 with all of our losses. He jumped for joy in 1998 when we beat the Packers, and again in 99 when we beat the Falcons. And in 2016 for Super Bowl 50, he couldn't jump anymore, but there were a lot of fist bumps. I know there was one in between, but we don't talk about that one. In middle school, we got our first VCR. It was set to report to General Hospital every day. And as soon as I'd get home from school, I would watch that day's episode. And guess what? Dad watched it with me. He knew every character, every plot line, and if he missed an episode, he made sure to ask me what had happened that day. But none of you ever knew that. As a kid, we used to always, when we went anywhere, we took the car on road trips, like so many, and I was always in the back seat and had to listen to my parents' music. I was into heavy metal back then, so it didn't mesh. And the one song my dad always sang when we would drive cross country was, "This land is your land. This land is my land." And the song would go on and on and on because he was so proud to be an American. I didn't know it back then, but in 1984, a movie came out that changed my life. It was The Woman in Red. My dad was a huge Gene Wilder fan, but it wasn't the movie that stuck with him. It was the song, "I Just Called to Say I Love You" by Stevie Wonder. Throughout high school, when I went to college, and when Alex and I got married, almost every time he would call me, instead of saying hello, he would sing those 8 words. In the last year, he had lost the ability to remember a lot of things and didn't call. But this last week, when I would come to see him, I made sure that that was the first song that he would hear when I came to his room. But good, even though I never forgot. My dad loves jokes. He was always telling jokes. He had a whole book full of jokes that he wasn't allowed to take with him when we left Russia. So all of the jokes he said were always in his head, and there was like an entire encyclopedia of them. And anybody who has tried to learn English from as a second language knows that it's not a very forgiving language. And sometimes it is the best joke. The misspoken words, the misunderstandings, the wrong meanings, they all provided many laughs for all of us over the years. The first car that my father ever bought brand new was a 1984 Pinto. It was a tin can that had absolutely nothing in it, and I mean nothing but an engine. When I was 15, Dad and I drove out to an abandoned parking lot so he could teach me how to drive a stick shift. Oh, that car was the bane of my existence. It didn't have a radio, it didn't have air conditioning, it had an engine and a stick shift, and that was it. And being the youngest and the smallest, whenever we went anywhere in that crowded 2-door clown car, I was the one that had to sit on the bump, and yeah, I still feel it. When we went to that abandoned parking lot, he put me in the driver's seat and told me to drive. I got the car first, second, third, and fourth. And then he said, "Okay, turn around." But the gear stick got stuck, and I almost drove us into a brick wall. And just like a Fast and Furious movie, I hit the clutch, I'd forced the stick out of fourth gear, and I hit the brakes and spun around just in time and did it all over again. I don't know if you ever knew the story, Mom. Over the years, along with every Gene Wilder movie, my father made it a point to watch every movie that had won Best Picture in the Oscars. I never did ask him if he succeeded to watch them all, but I really hope he did. I've never seen my father smile so much as when his grandchildren arrived. First came Missy, came into our lives, and we had something we'd never had before. A redhead. Bright and beautiful red curls suddenly filled our lives. And she became the sunshine to all of us. Soon after, we got 3 at once. Megan and Joey and Mitchell, all within a 2-week span. The most fun was trying to get pictures of the grandparents holding all three of them at once. And I succeeded. We have three that are so close in age, DNA, and upbringing, but you will never see more three different personalities. The musician, the engineer, the performing artist, the teacher, the introvert, the extrovert. A few years later, we got Jason, and most recently, Becky. These are our athletes. And while Dad had limited mobility, he would come to see Jason play hockey or lacrosse. Alex here tried to explain lacrosse to him, which doesn't exist in Russia. And that in and of itself was a foreign language. More than anything, he wanted all of you to be successful. No matter what you pursue, no matter what you do, just be successful and do it with a smile on your face. And each and every one is on his or her way. And the one thing he also passed on to all of his grandkids was great hair. In the end, to the end, he had great hair, full head of it. In the last few years, with his strength diminishing, he began to lose his balance. He started falling a lot. He became bound to a wheelchair pretty much without much ability to move around. He moved to Shalom Park, where they took excellent care of him. But it's hard to lose your independence like that. About 2 years ago, we arranged for our father to go to an adult daycare, where they allowed him to use his electric wheelchair. On his first day back, I called and talked to one of the people in charge and asked how he was doing there. And she said, "Well, hold on, he escaped." I said, "What?" Well, he was enjoying his freedom a little too much, and he maneuvered himself out the front door and was cruising around the parking lot doing wheelies. Unfortunately, his wheelchair had to be taken away from him after that. By education and trade, my father was a mechanical engineer and was always creating. His mind was always working to design new products. And looking back, some of his creations were really ahead of his time. Not everybody saw his vision, myself included. I couldn't understand why he spent so much time and energy on products that never seemed to go anywhere. Projects, sorry. As his body slowed down, so did his mind. And his projects and inventions were laid to rest. You see, he wanted to leave behind a legacy for his family, something for the world to remember him by. The truth is, the world doesn't matter. It's not important. What's important is the legacy that he left for me. It's not his creations, it's not the inventions, it's not. It's what I carry with me today. His legacy to me was to never stop following your dreams. If you envision it and have a plan and work at it every day, you're always one step closer to that dream. I didn't understand it back then, but I certainly do now. For that, I tell my father thank you. If you ever see me dialing your number, Dad, know that I just called to see that I love you.
Now I'd like to call upon Michael Gorelick, who's a cousin, who's going to read something that David had written about himself, and that he really wanted you, those of you who speak Russian, and you, those of you who speak English, and for you, those of you who speak both, because it's some, to hear what he had to say about his own personal, not only remembrances, but what he wanted to leave behind.
Well, Michael Garelik, I'm his cousin. Our fathers. So,
You have to speak into the microphone.
hello, can you hear me now? Okay. His cousin. And I knew him before 1966, but really the first time I understand who is my cousin was 1966. I came to Minsk from a little shtetl of Pinsk, and he was found apartment room. I lived across the road from Lena and Rem. And we spent quite a few hours together. Time we were watching hockey at night. It was the Soviet Union team was playing somewhere overseas, and then it was 11 years before they left Soviet Union. But I'm here to read what Rem wrote, and in both languages, English and Russian. I probably will start with Russian.
Do you read Russian? Just kidding. Just kidding.
No,
That was a
no,
joke.
I specially learned to read this. Давид Гор, он же Роман Горелик, он же Рем Горелик. Рем Горелик — это было его первое имя, потому что его родители дали. Потом при отъезде в Америку поменял Роман.
You have to speak up because they cannot hear you.
Sorry. I'm a soft-spoken person. So then he changed to David Gore. The whole family became Gore. So what he's writing here, or wrote here, is, что он благополучно завершает круг, называемый жизнью. Ему не повезло. Он родился в большой зоне полицейского государства, как и многие из нас, называемым Советским Союзом. Родился с клеймом, как и мы все, с 5-й графой, которая называлась еврей. А также ассоциировавшийся с врагами народа, убийцами белых халатов. 47-51 год. Потом было, что сионисты, начиная с 69 года и дальше, и лицами не коренной национальности. Коренной национальностью были русские, белорусы, украинцы, но не евреи. I don't know. No, it's better now. Can you hear me? I have to shout more?
Yes.
Okay. Начальство, включая всех кадровиков и чекистов, знало, как поступать с такими людьми. В простонародье это называлось просто жить пархат. Он вынужден был жить во лжи. Ему относительно повезло. Он по возрасту не участвовал в многомиллионной войне, организованной двумя кровавыми диктаторами, диктаторами, каждый из которых стремился стать властелином вселенной. Он не попал ни в гитлеровский, ни в советский концлагерь, малые зоны, Мудрость русского народа гласит: от сумы и от тюрьмы не зарекайся. Величайший душегуб всех времен и народов сдох всего за несколько недель или месяцев до исполнения своего варианта окончательного решения еврейского вопроса, в котором Давиду и его современникам предстояла мучительная смерть. Ему сравнительно рано удалось вырваться с семьей из большой зоны, провести хоть и худшую половину жизни в свободной стране. Хотя полжизни он прожил в нищете, как проклятый на голую зарплату, 15 лет жил или в бараках, или скучно, как в бараках, он благодарен судьбе, Богу, природе, ненужное зачем, давших ему жизнь и возможность ознакомиться не только с плохими сторонами этой жизни. Он делает это сообщение с небольшим опережением, во-первых, потому что он на 9-м десятке жизни. Это не жизнь, а длиннее. Во-вторых, потому что другие будут ограничены обычаем говорить только хорошее и скажут не так. Поэтому он с маленьких лет до того, как приехали в Англию. Now is for English speaking, okay? And you know, I'm from Russia too, from Soviet Union, so my accent should not surprise you. David Gore, okay, Roman Gorelick, and also Rem Gorelick announced that he is successfully completing the circle of life. He had bad luck. He was born in the outer prison camp zone, the police state known as the Soviet Union. Born, branded in his documents as a Jew, a brand associated with enemies of the people, cosmopolitans from 1947 to 51, murders in white smocks 1952 to 53, aggressors 1967, and Zionists from 1969 on. It's how they call Jews in Soviet Union. The management, including all HR and KGB, knew how to treat people like that. The common folks had a simple phrase to such people, felt the Jews. He had to live a lie. He had relatively good luck. He was too young to take part of multi-million victim war organized by two blood-sucking dictators, each wanting to be master of the universe. He did not end up in either Hitler's nor in Stalin's concentration camps, the inner prison camp zone. The greatest murderer of all time and all nations struck only weeks, at most months before executing his own final solution of the Jewish question, in which he had planned suffering and death for David and his tribe. David was able to escape the outer prison camp zone, relatively young, and so what should have been the best half of his life had been spent there. The other half he got to live in a free country. Сот half of his life he lived in poverty, as they said in USSR, cursed to live on only salary. Some people were making more than salaries. Living for 15 years in barracks or in conditions just as cramped, he is grateful to faith of God, nature, take your pick, for giving him life and the opportunity to experience not just the bad part of his life. He's making the announcement a little ahead of schedule because first, the ninth decade of one's life is not life, but fading embers, and second, because other will feel obligated by custom to say only the good things and will get it wrong. I can understand because we all have things that we made, but on the funerals we all say good things. But he was a great man, okay? And we love him, and we still gonna love him and remember. So that's all.
Will you just rush them?
Just for
That's
you.
my job. My job is the Yiddish version. There's one piece of Jewish tradition that we use every time we gather together in a moment like this, and that's the words of the 23rd Psalm, whether in Hebrew or in English, and I'll do it in both. But the question is, why do we use the 23rd Psalm? David wrote this Psalm, and I learned a long time ago in my rabbinic training that when he wrote, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," because that's the reason we use it at a moment like this, he was not talking about death. He was talking to the mourners, whoever those mourners are, whether it's the children, the grandchildren, the sister, whether it's friends who mourn. He was saying to you, yea, though I walk through it, don't get stuck in the middle of the valley of the shadow of death. We have learned over the centuries that we have to walk through it, we have to move forward, which is what I think those words were about that Michael just read to us, whether it was in Russian, which I don't understand at all, in English, which I do understand a little bit, and in Yiddish, half and half. Whatever those words are, they're telling us to move forward in life and not to get stuck in the past. So I'm going to read the Psalm in Hebrew, and then I'll read it in English. If any of you know parts of it, whether it's in Russian or in English, please say it along with me. Adonai Roi lo echsor beno deshe yarbitzeni al me menachot haleni. Nafshi shavei v'yancheni b'maglei tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki elech b'geit samavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shivtecha mishantecha hema yanachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai. D'shanta v'shem en roshi kosi ravaya. Ach tov v'chesed. Yirdafuni kol yamei chayai v'shavti b'veit Adonai. Orech yamin. For the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Beloved family, dear friends, I recognize that you've been standing out in this very hot sun for a long time. And I want to just take a few minutes to add to these very beautiful words that have already been shared with us, because they have been out of the hearts of those who loved him. want to give you some advice. And I do so. I'm Rabbi Foster, by the way, for those of you who don't know me. And the reason I say that is because my grandfather came to this country in 1906. The times have changed. I recognize that. But the purposes have not. And the fears and the fulfillments have not changed. But I must tell you, the whole idea of changing one's name from Gorelnik to whatever it was before it was really Gorelnik to Gore. My father's name was not Foster. Those of you who know English may laugh at it. It's good. It's all right. Say hello for me. Those of you who know English don't know Russian. My grandfather's name was Zhitovsky. But because the Russian Z looked like the American F, he became Futowski. But he wanted his sons. That's what his name was in Russia. He wanted his sons to be Futowski. So when my mother was from German background, her last name was Buchbinder. My father's name was Futowski. My mother said, I'm not going from Buchbinder to Futowski. So they looked in the phone book and found the name that was modern. Now, Gorelik is, from my point of view, because I've known all your families. I mean, remember, my wife worked for Jewish Family Service from 77 on. So we've known so many of the families that have come here from Soviet Union. Gore was not his name. And as soon as Joyce heard that I was doing David Gore, she said he was Roman Gorelnik. I said, I recognize that name. I recognized. Of course I recognize that name. But the truth is, Gore is okay. It's like Foster. I'm not going to go from whatever it was to Gorelnik to Gore. It's okay. But I want to share with you, especially for you young people, grandchildren, especially for you. When that first generation came to America, and I don't care whether it was 1977 or 1906, it doesn't make any difference. They came here for two reasons. Mostly they came here because it was tough in Eastern Europe. But it was tough not just to make a living. I know that, it was always tough. But it was tough to be a Jew in Eastern Europe. So they came here to escape the anti-Semitism of Eastern Europe. And my grandfather was no different. The only difference was my grandfather spoke Yiddish. You all spoke Russian because there was a number of years in between. And Yiddish was taken away from you by that anti-Semitic government. I understand that. And maybe that's what your dad was so angry about. Maybe he wanted to retain some of what he was. But they came here as first generation. And they had their children here. My father, my uncle, you two, you're first generation born here. He came here. Oh no, you're not their first, right? You're first generation coming here. But you were young. But you were young. And so you had a special responsibility, and you still do. And that was to protect what it was that they came here to find. And that was freedom. And that was to be Jews in a Jewish place, in a place that Jews would be accepted. And we are. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But that's what they came here to find. And the second generation, my generation, for us, it was to protect what it was that you have to secure. And for you, it is also to protect it for the next generations. That's what our obligation is. And I hope that that's what you will take out of what he wrote. Because it wasn't just to give you a history. Most important thing about today is not to reflect on what he did, what years, and where he was, and all. That's important, but it's not as important as who he was. Because who he was determined what he would do. Who he was that person who wanted to make sure that others also had freedom. To make sure that others also would be respected, not as observant Jews, although you can be, but to be respected as Jews, regardless of what that means to each of you as individuals, as children, or your children, the grandchildren. It's to recognize We have something special and we give some gifts to this world. And he understood that. He did understand that. That's what you shared with me. And that's what I think we're here to celebrate today. Not just what he did and where he did it. It was the fact that he was honest and he was opinionated. I don't know of an Eastern European Jewish person who's not opinionated. He was not any different than anybody else. But he loved America. And he wasn't afraid to stand up for this great country. Even with our difficulties, and we have them. No different today than it's been in the past. Maybe a little different. But we are here. And he loved this place. And that's what I hope we will take away. That he used his creativity to invent. He was the idea man. He was the idealist. He was the person who used his ability to be a leader, to bring others or to help bring others here. It doesn't happen just by him, by himself. There are many, many, many people who are here, who not only contributed their dollars, but their time and their energy to make sure that people had the opportunity. And I think that's what he appreciated the most. So I'm not going to say anything else, except I do want to read a short poem for you. No, I want to read something else first. I'm sorry. Yaakov, I almost forgot, most important words. Yaakov wrote about his dad. And it's really about the leadership that was his father. And he wrote the following, and he asked me to read it. The most important learning I got from my father was when I was about 9. Our grandmother, Batsya, David's mother, lived with our aunt, Valya, Dad's sister, and her family along the same street in Minsk as we did. Something like 10 trolley bus stops away. We would often walk home from visiting Baba Batsya, the 3 of us, Dad, my baby sister, in a carriage or stroller, and I. On one occasion, he pointed to the moon. There are American astronauts walking there right now. It was on those walks that I discovered that we were Jews. Growing up watching Soviet movies, I knew that there were 2 kinds of people. Russians, ours, the good guys, and Germans, the others, the enemies. Once I heard some ugly anti-Semitic joke and proudly told it to Dad. Son, I need to tell you something. You had to be careful about when to introduce such topics to a child in the USSR, because little kids are high on talk and low on discretion. It was during those walks that I learned that we are Jews. All of our relatives are Jews. There are lots of people around who despise Jews, but that being a Jew is nothing to be ashamed of. And in fact, there have been many Jews throughout history who made one proud, like Albert Einstein. It was on whose wall? It's on your wall, right? I saw it on this. I know he was. I know you. They know he was Jewish. I learned how to be who I am, though with necessary discretion. Dad was not a religious Jew. Like almost all of us, all of his generation in the Soviet Union, he was brought up as an atheist. But he had respect, I want to say not for Judaism, but for the Jewish people. Judaism is the religion of the Jewish people. He had respect for both, but he had a special respect for the Jewish people, but never felt the need to partake in the religion. Okay. He knew a few Yiddish phrases, but his parents were the last generation who were fluent Yiddish speakers. But he was firmly part of the people Israel. I had that grounding too. For those walks with my little sister, I wanted to remember these walks today because nobody else can. Vic was an infant and a toddler then. I thank him for that. And I thank everybody who came to honor his life today. That's what we're here for, friends. I must tell you, I've been doing this a long time. I've been a rabbi in this community now for 52 and a half years. Long time. I have never asked for anybody's certificate of religiosity. If somebody says to me, I'm a Jew, they're Jewish. I'm okay with that. And even some of my very traditional colleagues accept that notion as well. And that's what binds us together. Yaakov, you understand that. The talks with your dad. So in closing, let me read this beautiful, beautiful poem, and I think sums up what we have been doing here today. Poet wrote, when I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by sharing your joys and multiplying your good deeds. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our tradition teaches. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. I do believe that the poet understands this moment. Our job is to carry on. For you as grandchildren to emulate who he was and to teach it to the generations going to come after you. Because without you, we lose all of these valuable memories and we lose this identity. It is in that spirit then that we resolve to face our grief without self-pity, but with bravery and integrity, keeping before us forever the blessings that God conferred upon us in this life that he but lent to us for these many decades. And in a world where our most precious goods are perishable, let us resolve to honor our beloved dead by being so good to the living, so kindly, so understanding, so forgiving, so transcendent of pettiness, that in our love for him we shall hearken to those who remain and who need us and our strength. May it be through new relationships and new service to humanity that we make good our loss. And in the beauty of our own lives, erect the noblest monument to our mourned dead, lest the beauty of his life should ever abide among us all as a living, loving benediction. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach. Yehi shem Adonai mevarach me'atav yad olam. God has given. God has taken away. Praise be the name of God, now and forevermore. Let us all say together. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the blueness of the sky and in the heat of the summer, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. We are weary and in need of strength. We will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we will remember him. And we have achievements based on his, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live. He now is a part of us. We will remember him. Asher yatzar et chem b'tzalmo v'zan chikeh etchem b'tuvor. V'mit etchem b'din v'nata b'tochim chayei olam. Baruch atah Adonai. Amen. Praise you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in the divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in your goodness, causing all of us to die, and planting immortal life within us. We praise you, O God. Judge of truth, Tagi Borle Olam Adonai Rab Roshia, Al Pil Chaim B'Chesed Mechayei HaKol. Great is your might, O God, all life is your gift. Great is your power to save. With love you sustain the living. With great compassion, you give life to all. You send help to the fallen and healing to the sick. You bring freedom to the captive and keep faith with those who sleep in the dust. praise you, O God, who implants eternal life within us. Dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. Clay thou art, and to the clay of the earth thou shalt return. Spirit art thou, and unto the Spirit of God we commit your soul this day. In our tradition, it is considered to be an act of love and kindness to bury the dead. It is our collective task. So for those of you who would like to participate in this mitzvah, I would ask you to step forward at this time. Know that in this cemetery, you don't have to fill the entire grave up, but we do have to cover the casket. So your help would be greatly appreciated. Let's go first. You just help her. Just take a shovel. Let her hold on to the shovel. Just don't get too close. That we were waiting. You okay? Debbie, she's okay. She teaches at Simons. She loves the children, but she's not paid. Not like this, but it's nice to see you. We're not done yet because we're going to say Kaddish. Sure. Thank you for your job. Thank you. Yaakov. Because you're not done yet. Sure. Hey guys, I need your help.
Я знаю только самые последние. Потому что я никогда не спрашиваю одного.
Но ты меня никогда говорят. Конечно, у нас были разногласия.
Это хорошо.
Нужно же пойти. Я уже
Это
спасибо не говоришь. София не считает, что она в таке. Спасибо не говоришь. A lot of Cover City is a lot of remember me. Yeah, but I was doing kind Always This is their first Ladies and gentlemen, just
Okay, everybody, please step back up to the tent.
Don't worry. I'll make sure you stand up at the appropriate time. Follow me. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the spirit which we have laid within the bosom of the earth. But the spirit itself cannot die. For here too our dear ones continue in the loving remembrance of those to whom they were precious. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our beloved David Gore, or Roman Gorelick. Grant him that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has compassed it, still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion, now and forevermore. So I would ask you now, dear family and friends, to please rise, that we might recite together the words that have been hallowed by centuries of faith, the words that have been glorified in our tradition, words of the Kaddish Prayer. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bialma, Divrach Hirute, Biamlich Malchute, Chaye Chon Uviyome Chon, V'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv. Yimaru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba Mivorach Leolam Uliolmei Olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei Dekudsha Barichu Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Da'amiran bi'alma v'yimaru Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabba min Shemaya v'chayim Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru Amen. Oseh Shalom b'mrama Hu ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru Amen. El Mali Rachamim Shochin Bamramim. Hamatzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina. Im Kadoshim Utahorim Kazohar Harakim Azirin. Et Nishmat David ben Yaakov Uvasya. Shehalach La'olamo. Baal HaRachamim. Yastirehu B'Seter Kenufav Le'olamim. Vayitzror B'Tzror HaChaim Et Nishmata. Adonai hu nechalata b'tanuach b'shalom. Al mishkava v'nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to David Gore, Yaakov, David ben Yaakov Uvatya, who has entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession. May his repose ever be peace. The departed whom we now remember has been called unto the peace of life eternal. He shall still live on earth in the acts of goodness he has performed. And in the hearts of those who will ever cherish his memory, we pray that the beauty of his life will ever abide among us all as a living loving benediction. And may the source of peace send peace unto all who mourn. May God comfort all the bereaved among us, among Israel, all the nations and the families of earth. Let us say together, Amen. David lech kishalach Adonai. Go your way, for God has called you. Lech v'Adonai yiyeh imach. Go your way, and may God be with you. Halach lefanecha tzidkecha. Kevod Adonai yasvecha. May your righteousness go before you, and may the glory of God receive you. And let us all say together.
This does conclude our service, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I know there is a reception taking place right after where you can go and continue to share thoughts and memories of David together, okay?
Where is that?
Samarkand.
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 Samarkand restaurant. It is at the
Parker
Road.
It's on the online obituary as well. You can just go on to, yeah, you can just go on to feldmanmortuary.com and it'll be there too. Thank you.
You going to reception?
No, not today.